Now, one question that I get asked time and time again is, when is the best time to start tutoring? So when in a student's life is the most appropriate time to start seeking out a little bit of extra help? Now, the short answer is when you start to see them struggle. If you feel like that your particular student might be starting to have a really hard time, then it's probably a great idea to get some help. Now, typically speaking, that usually starts to happen around the sort of year 8, year 9 level. So a student's about 13 or 14, and that's when the curriculum really starts to amp up and get a little more difficult. Not only that, but this difficulty comes with the added challenge of possibly inflicting on a student's self-confidence. You know, if they find themselves struggling in class, that's going to impact how they view maths as a whole. And if you let it just continue, it can build out to the point where they're resenting school as an entire concept because they're maybe not doing as well as they would like. If they're not having a good time and enjoying themselves, they're A, not learning, but B, more importantly, not responding to anything that's happening in the school environment. And that can have a huge impact on more than just an educational career. You know, it can impact social development. There's a lot of rolling factors that will really start to snowball if we sort of don't get a grip. Now, I'm not trying to say this to scare you, like this is not all students, but a lot of students you will find is if they start struggling with a maths concept, and it might start something really simple, that in particular can snowball, and you'll start to find that a student eventually starts to dislike maths as a whole subject, and that can end up being a really slippery slope towards disliking any other science-based subjects. And if it goes on far enough, you find that they actually just start to dislike school. If they find themselves not able to perform to the standard that's sometimes expected of them, it can be really difficult to ignite that passion of learning, which we're actually looking for. So we want to make sure that we get in early and make sure they never get to that point. Now, ideally, this usually means around the 12 or 13-year-old mark is a great time to start tutoring if you're finding that a student is struggling. Any younger than that is possible, but we do look at it on a case-by-case scenario. We want to make sure that a tutor is not going to have the adverse effect of then having a student resent the extra work. So a lot of the time it's about finding that balance between making sure that they're enjoying their schoolwork, but also not that they're overloaded. So if you have a young student who's, you know, committing an extra hour or two after school every week, that's not really what you're looking for out of a school environment. You're not looking for that extra work, and you'll find that a student will tend to resent the extra work that's placed upon them. As students start to get a bit older, they can learn to accept the fact that tutoring is actually there to help them. It's not just there as an extra homework job or it almost feels like punishment to some kids. We want to make sure that the student is fully aware that a tutor is actually helping them. And we've found after quite a few years of doing this, that around the age of 12, 13, you know, really when they're starting to get into high school and it starts to get a bit more serious, that students are mature enough to accept the fact that tutoring is to help them and not to punish them for, say, you know, performing poorly. We want to inspire these kids with confidence and make sure they're happy and enjoying their school time. Ultimately, this will mean that they won't need a tutor in the long term because they'll have that passion for learning that will drive them to continue working hard by themselves. So any younger than around the high school age, we tend to discourage unless there are special situations, but year 8, 9, even year 7, depending on how intense the schoolwork is definitely a great time to start looking at getting a tutor.